Yeah. All right. Let's just hop into it, yeah? So, because it's less editing.
Yeah.
All right. You're listening to another episode of Teachers Talk Sports. On today's episode, we are going to discuss the first week and a half of the Portland Trail Blazers, observations around the league, and dive into a little bit of Week 17 NFL. Playoffs are coming up. I'm joined today, as always, by my guy, my bud, my number one man, Brian F. Fenema. How you doing today, sir? Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year. Yeah, it's nice. We're on to a new venture. 2020 has made its way out of our lives, and hopefully all of the lasting impact that it has had is obviously going to leave with it. We hope. I mean, it's not like the calendar year turns over and all of a sudden everything's back to normal. It's still going to be a wonky year, but all things considered, we are in good health. Got to see the fam for the holidays. I know you got to see a little bit of fam as well. And that was a really nice, rejuvenating time to spend time with family. A lot of work having to go that far, but all things considered, it's great. And here we are in December where we got really important football coming up, but also basketball. And basketball's already in full swing. So I know everyone's dying to hear what we have to say about our Portland Trail Blazers.
Absolutely. Rip City, baby. Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel optimistic coming into this new year. I know that not everybody's feeling the same way as I am, but
Sure.
Things are changing. I feel like there's some light at the end of the tunnel that started to reveal itself just in the world and country at large towards the end of 2020. And, I'm generally wired to be a little optimistic. So feeling good personally. And also got a nice chance to get away, and it just felt good to get away and then to come back because I've probably spent 85% of my breaths in this room or like in this house, since March. Yep. So it's just nice to step away and come back and be like, oh yeah, I love this house. This is and I love this city. So, and also I love doing this pod and watching Blazers basketball. So I'm feeling pretty good.
For sure. And I know that there's another thing that we both missed. I mean, I had incredible weather, so I wasn't missing that, but I know for a fact you and I both missed a little bit of that gambling action. There was a piece of me that was just like, man, don't even look at the lines because you're just going to be upset about some. But it was nice to take 2 full weeks off of gambling, but hey, we've both grown our accounts, and it's not just going to sit there all year. We got to spend that money to make that money.
Absolutely. Yeah, we got to get into a little bit of gambling because both Brian and I got these free bets from our local betting app, and they're juicy, and it really is just so fun. Good work on their part.
And then we'll just throw it out. Maybe we'll just do open-ended. Where do you want Brian and Johnny to spend their money? if you've got if you've got something juicy, shoot us a DM. Tell us in the comment section because, we both have a significant 2 free bets and we would love to win them. And I'm an odds hunter and I think I've got an idea for you. So I'll save that for the end. But let's kick it off with these Portland Trail Blazers. I know in our last one, we looked at the schedule. We did a deep dive into it and we said, hey, December's going to be tough.
Yep.
January is going to be dope. Yep. And if we could just get out about 3-3, we'd feel great. And here we are, 3-2, playing a depleted Warriors team again tomorrow. So I'm feeling really good about that. And, it was nice to be on that side of the blowout because what happened with the Clippers was unfortunate. But, there's still a lot that is there's meat on that bone for me. I don't think, and we've discussed this via text, there's just this weird kind of ebbs and flows with this team that I can't quite figure out. And I know part of it is figuring out the rotation, figuring out the minutes, but there's just these weird waves of energy as well. And that's one of the things that I'm seeing is yesterday, the energy was there against the Lakers. The energy was there, but with the Clippers there, you could just see the guys and the Lakers and the Clippers were both coming off of back-to-backs. So you would think that would be easy for the Blazers to be the ones providing all of the energy and having that kind of impact. But man, it's been weird. What are you seeing with that?
I'm seeing the same thing. I think that what we're seeing here in Portland is the same thing we're seeing in the league at large, which is just that it is such a wonky up and down type of deal. Going back into the preseason, which I recognize as preseason, but the Blazers in the first game, they looked awesome. And then in the last 3, they looked absolutely wretched. And then against Utah, they looked bad. And then against the Lakers, they looked pretty good. And against the Rockets, second half, they looked okay. And you look at the league at large, and the Clippers are down 51 at half, lose by 50, and then come back and just womp us the next 2 games later. Like the Bucks lose to the Knicks by 20, and they're the Bucks. It's been a really, really strange up and down sort of thing. And I think when the bubble started, I expected to see this kind of play to come out where it would be like all wonky, but really it was a super high level of play. So I think that got me predisposed to think that it would continue over this year. And my hypothesis about the whole thing is that, well, in the bubble, it was continuity. Those teams played with each other all year long. Whereas this year, every team's incorporating new players. And they had almost no training camp. The Blazers missed like half of their very short training camp because of a COVID scare. And so I just think that you're kind of seeing a big group of dudes trying to figure it out as they go, and it's broadcasted on live television. And so we're just kind of seeing the wonkiness shake out on live television.
And maybe just some of the warts starting to glare, because you look around the league and you see some of these teams that are doing well. Like, I don't think it's that big of a shock that the Magic are playing well, because look at their core. They're bringing their same team back for the most part. It's this, the Clippers are making some small transition moves as well. And so they're doing well, but that is weird. And I think you're onto it. Is most of these guys had been together. The camaraderie was there. They understood who they were. They kind of fit it. But then, I don't know, when you look at it from the Blazers end, they were still trying to bring Collins in and Nurk in, but maybe it was just that pretty much all of our guys had played with them at some point. Maybe that made the transition, but I knew it was going to look like this, especially for the Lakers, because they're getting such weird new pieces. I kind of expected a little bit of this from the Blazers, but I think it's just going to take some time before coaches feel really comfortable with their rotations. And I know Terry has always kind of come under fire for his rotations, and it's going to figure itself out eventually. And then when you get to a point where you feel like, I know we were talking about it. We loved what he threw out against the Lakers, but then you don't have Gary for the past 2 games. It changes everything. It really does. There's no Melo, but then the next 2 games, there's no Gary. And we see some of those ups and downs. And so it's going to take another few weeks. And that's why when we looked at the schedule, this is a blessing that we're getting this January, because I think it'll be a get right month. And I think the Blazers are going to really start to find their steam. As long as we can get consistent energy, that's the one thing that I've been looking for, and we just haven't found it yet. But I think part of that is it's weird playing in these huge empty arenas. I really think that that's part of it. And you can tell some of the guys are missing some of that juice that they really need. And so I think it's going to start getting there, and I can't wait for Get Back January. This is going to be a great month, dude. I really am looking forward to it.
Yeah, you look at the next 15 games, and there's you got, other than the Pacers and maybe kind of the Kings, there's one other team in there that's semi-spicy maybe, but it's relative to the strength of the league, it's a real easy slate. I was looking at it last night, and it likely won't happen just because of odds, but it was like, man, we could very, very much win 8 in a row here. And if the Blazers are able to get a nice little cushion like that, which hopefully they kind of need to capitalize here, that'd be amazing. So I want to hop in a little bit on Derrick Jones Jr. and Robert Covington, the 2 new starters that the Blazers are incorporating. Mm-hmm. And pretty much they're coming in as advertised, I'd say, both in terms of the strengths they're advertised and the shortcomings. Let's start with the positives. Defensively, since I've been hardcore following this team 5 years ago, the Blazers just haven't had guys with their skill sets. At the level that they're at, in terms of Derrick Jones Jr. is actually blowing my expectations out. I didn't expect him to be this good on ball. Yeah. Last night against Steph, he looked like he was actually making Steph work for those shots. He did a decent job. Again, all these guys got their numbers, but just the eye test, Derrick made him work. He did a decent job against LeBron. He had that highlight block. But just in general, he made LeBron work, even though he's so much skinnier than him. It's oh my God, LeBron's shoulder is the size of his thighs. But And he did it. He made Harden work, although Harden ultimately roasted him. He worked him the entire night. So Derek looks nice. They get those long arms in the passing lanes, and Covington, same thing. He's not a phenomenal one-on-one defender, but he can hold his own. And team defense, it's just those guys back there playing free safety, patrolling the paint, has been real nice. And I love to see it. I love watching a team that has some defensive potential, although they haven't quite lived up to it yet.
Sure. Well, I mean, we kind of knew what we were getting with Robert Covington. We knew that we were getting an elite 3-and-D defender who plays good team defense, and we've seen it. But same thing is, I wasn't expecting Derek Jones Jr. to come in and be like, "Hey, I'm going to do it." And like you could see, he wanted LeBron, and LeBron was giving him some chirping. He was shocking. He was complaining to the officials about him.
Yeah,
but Derek Jones was like, "I'm about it, dude. Like, bring it." And like you said, DJJ is closer to your build than LeBron's build. So like, we get it. Like he's getting, but he's young, and he's the kind of person that, since I've been in Portland, that the Blazers haven't had. And that's the kind of guy who plays above the rim. Yeah. And what he's capable of with just those backdoor slashes, that's going to be his role offensively, taking open jump shots and then slashing on those backdoor kicks. And he has that wow potential. He really does. And so he's the kind of guy that people in this city are going to really, really like. But you start bringing in, like you said, that defense. And it's been a huge wart on the Blazers game for years now. It's nice to have guys who seem to be playing well together. I think that we haven't really understood what we're getting from Yusuf, but his defensive intensity has been there. So that's been nice as well. But you can just see it already. It's not layup line like we used to say. There's times where it's just like, make it look at least a little hard, but they're getting there. And it's going to take time, like we said, but it's exciting. Like I really like these two guys that no one even talked about. Had the Blazers not given up 2 firsts for Robert Covington, no one would have said a damn thing about the trade. And so that's the thing, is everyone was like, well, 2 first rounders. I like it. I like it already. And I know what we're getting from him. He's already seems like he's fitting in personality wise, schematic wise. And that's exciting, because once we can get back in the arena, these two guys are going to be very, very popular with people in Portland.
The other fun thing about Derek is that for the mid-level exception, we got a guy that he's only 23 years old, and he's very much on the upwards trajectory. So just for me as a fan, that's one of my favorite parts of being a fan, is rooting for young guys and watching their trajectory. So just that alone is really exciting. Also, like, speaking about his highlight plays, the chase down block of LeBron, which we already talked about, was
incredible,
phenomenal. And then that backdoor alley-oop in overtime against Houston.
Yeah.
It's just like, also speaking, like, as a fan, it's just so fun to have that as part of the package. I do just want to say, you mentioned their defense. I need to say that the defense overall has not looked great. I mean, it's looked good in some games and awful in other games, and we've given up against teams that move the ball well. The Blazers have given up a bunch of open threes.
Yeah.
Terry Stotts is trying to implement a new defensive strategy. Instead of having the big man drop back on pick and rolls, like on the screens up top, instead of having him drop back, he's trying to have him play up a little bit, which just extends the defense more. So then the rotations on the weak side are more important, and it's getting better. You see it getting better, but there have been some horrible lapses against Denver in the preseason, against Utah in the opener, against the first half of Houston. So it's very much not a finished product. And the Blazers, they don't need to be a top 5 defense, because got Christian James McCollum and Damian Lillard and Nurkic and a bunch of other guys that could put the ball in the hoop. We're just looking for a league average defense and to go with that top tier offense. And then you're looking at a real nice squad here.
Scoring has never been an issue. It really hasn't, because we have a couple of guys who can just get theirs whenever they feel like it. What you were saying about rushing that high pick and roll is just what teams have been doing to the Blazers in the playoffs the last 2-3 seasons. Exactly. And so maybe Terry's just kind of on that. I've seen this done to us. Let's just try and get out and do it. You're right. You add the Clippers in there, where the Clippers were just making incredible passes, but they were also hitting threes at the kind of clip where you can tell this doesn't bode well for the Blazers. They would have to go down every time and take threes, and that's just not who they are really stylistically. So again, holistically, it's going to take time, but the parts are there and we're seeing some of that excitement. And that's what's fun is I like these guys. And just going back one more time, the people in this city are going to like these guys. These guys are going to be really, really fun to cheer for. And that thing, Derek Jones, you heard when, I don't think you were listening to the Blazers feed, but Lamar lost his mind when he went up and he just kind of did a gather step against the Clippers, and he reached way back for a dunk. That was going to be one of those things. Lamar literally went, like as he was going up. And I was just like, oh God, this could be, this is one of those sickest missed dunks of all time. But he's just got it. And he's going to be one of those people where as the team travels or as we're in the Moda, people are just like, whoa, because he's just has that bounciness, and he's a fun guy to root for. And this team is fun. They really are. And we would be damned if we didn't bring up the energy and the excitement in a different way that Ennis brings too. Like, it's so nice to have Ennis back.
This vacuum on the offensive boards. It's
rebounding.
It blows my mind. Like, I guess it's just he must have a fundamental understanding of positioning. That's like he's always in the right spot, and he's so freaking big and strong. But he's like, it's uncanny how often he gets those offensive boards. It's awesome.
He's just always in the right position. He's never like mental error guy. And I know we'll get to him, but it's so hard to see when him and Carmelo are next to each other. Carmelo's positioning for rebounding is just like, is this something that's been going on for 18 years or however long it's been? Because Ennis is just always in position. Granted, he's got the body to put people in their spots, but there's times where he'll go up and he'll miss two bunnies himself, but he's going to get those rebounds, and eventually he's going to put it back in. And I know about 14 months ago, we both said, man, we're going to miss Ennis. And it's so nice to have him back because he, again, another guy who loves our city, understands what it's like to be in Portland, and is going to fit a role. And I'm excited. It's really nice to have him back. Then you throw in another piece with Giles too, who's really exciting as well. I think the biggest thing right now, my only thing is, can we get Coach Aaron Feld, who's the strength and conditioning coach for the Ducks? Can we get him up in the Blazers? Because we got some guys who I feel like maybe they could use a little bit of chest day and arms day. But other than that, I really like what we're seeing. And I think that the national media is I think the Blazers are going to start to get that steam and that momentum, because historically the past 3 years, the Blazers have started so slow. Right. And part of it is travel. But I think that there's going to be a lot of people who are starting to notice what they're doing. And once we can get the rotations right, it's going to be a fun month to sit back. And then it's going to be fun moving into February when we're looking at that schedule and being like, there's a lot of winnable games, because this team is going to have the motivation, the confidence, and the belief in themselves that they can beat anybody. The Blazers can play with anyone. I don't care what happened against the Clippers. They can play against anybody. It's just a matter of, will the shots be falling that day, and are they going to be good in team defense? So it's going to be fun moving forward. And this is a fun team to cheer for. And I'm Mr. Run It Back guy. And we've brought back the same sort of team, but we've just thrown in two guys who just look like they're ready to fill the role.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that that's also true. I think that with hopefully a good January in that team success could come, and it's a bit of a long shot, but I'm on the watch right now. CJ McCollum All-Star watch. If the Blazers are like a top 2 seed when the All-Star comes around.
Yeah.
Which is, kind of a big if. The West is just absolutely loaded. The Suns look like they're for real. Mm-hmm. Denver will come around, but if the Blazers are top 2 or 3 seed, right now CJ's top 5 in scoring. He's leading the league in threes made. I know it's only 5 games, but he's looked awesome. And his percentages are high. I think he's shooting 45 from deep, but that's not impossible, especially with the attention that Dame is getting this year. It's consistent that CJ is going to get these opportunities on defenses that are strung out, because they're doubling Dame almost at half court with regularity. So CJ is getting to play 4 on 3. 4 on 3. Yeah, 4 on 3, and he's cooking. And even when he's playing 5 on 5, he's cooking. So it's a long shot if because you got your locks. Luka's going to make it, Dame's going to make it, and then Steph's going to make it. So you kind of got to beat out either Booker, Chris Paul, Donovan Mitchell, which is going to be real tough to do. But if he continues at something near where he's at right now and the Blazers have that team success, CJ will be on watch, which is exciting. He's never made it before, and he's so good.
This is, this is something that's close to my heart because of my admiration of Christian James. It's hard. It is hard when you do the roadmap. It is nice that Westbrook is now on the other conference. I don't know what to think about Chris Paul as an all-star because he's doing a lot of just facilitating and not taking a lot of shots. So maybe, but there is the Mitchell and the Murray effect. But and Steph, yes, he's going to get his.
He'll get in from boat even if he has a down.
Well, that's the thing is Steph isn't having an incredible year, nor is Luka, but it doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter because they have those names. And so it's going to be hard for CJ. Hopefully he can have, we can have one of those big come out moments in a primetime game. It was nice to get a little bit of the CJ buzz when he was going toe to toe with Harden because of what came up a couple days before about, it would take CJ to make a Harden trade work, which, you probably know how I feel about that, but I think a couple good games and some standalone spots, and CJ could really start to cement himself. I think players around the league know about CJ. It's just that fans don't necessarily know him. And we talked about it. We're a little bit shocked with how he has looked because while Dame is a warrior when it comes to workouts and getting time in the gym, but CJ was dealing with a broken back. So, the fact that he was able to come out and looks the way he does and he looks comfortable, doesn't look like he's missing a spot. Confidence has never been a problem with Christian James. It's never been an issue. He knows he's got it and he knows he can fill it in. But man,
I love him saying that too. He's like, man, I know I'm nice.
Yeah, because he is. Because he is. And you just listen to him on the mic and you're like, he is nice. Like nice. This guy's so great. I mean, there's a reason that the 3 jerseys up there. I love him so much. And he really is a good piece to have. We need a little bit of extra sets of eyeballs, but I love the campaign for it. I love it. I mean, Dame's going to push it, because these guys like each other, and Dame will help with the narrative. Dame will help get along. But man, how good would it be to have 2 All-Stars for the first time?
That'd be so cool. And CJ's he's made some adjustments. He's intentionally shooting more threes and less mid-range. I mean, he cooks in the mid-range. I don't want him to take that out of his game by any means. But he's shooting over 11 threes a game right now. Again, small sample size, but he's said on the microphone he's intentionally shooting more threes. And Terry has said that he's telling him to shoot more threes. And I just think as he changes his shooting diet like that, it's going to make him a more efficient player, which is awesome. I think, and I know that I've waffled on this, but I do believe that a Dame and CJ team could be a real title contender. You just got to put the right pieces around them. So.
Is this the year? Is this it?
I honestly, objectively still think that we're probably a piece away, but this is a just top to bottom a very talented team that fits together well.
No, but is this the year that you don't send me any of the texts that I hate receiving? Is this the year that they finally go away?
I'm sorry, man. Even when I want to, I restrict myself now, so I'm sorry. When James Harden rumors came up, I'm like, man, all I want to talk about, but no, don't do it. And besides,
Brad will be upset,
man. He's amazing. That guy, James Harden. It's incredible what he is as an offense onto himself, but still, CJ's the guy.
James Harden. When Kimbo Slice was discovered in backyard fighting, backyard fist fighting, that's what he looked like.
For sure, he put on a
little thick, and Kimbo is never dialed as far as his physique, but with the beard and the shirt, he looks so much like Kimbo, and it's just but he's still out there getting 44 and 17, and then he went off 2 nights ago too, and it's but I mean,
James Harden is an anomaly. How could you come in looking 10 pounds overweight, just clubbing with Lil Baby or whatever, and come out and just drop 44 and 17?
Because he's still the most talented scorer we've had. He can get his whenever he wants, and it looked physically, you're looks like he's just going through the motions,
right?
And he's just I am, but I'm that damn good.
He's that
good. It was so fun to watch, and just to put a bow on some of this before we go a little bit of whole league, I think that there was a little bit of negative energy going into that game because it's so predictable. The players hear all of the noise. They hear the commentary.
Of course.
And it's like, and everyone in Portland was like, if we don't beat the Rockets, let alone blow them out, this team has nothing to look forward to. And like, okay, we get it. But that starts to feel in because like even professional athletes start to feel that moment. And when the fans aren't there and the crowd isn't there to will you through some of those lulls, it's hard to get up. And so, like, it wouldn't have been the end of the world had we lost to the Rockets. It would have sucked, but it would have been the end of the world. But I understood in that spot why we weren't just blowing out another team. These are still professional athletes that still fill it in and still understand. Granted, there's about 2 or 3 guys on the Rockets roster right now that are like, I will never see them again for the rest of my life. Yeah. But
tape.
Still, yeah. But it's like, okay, but I understood where that piece was. But
I mean, I was real nervous. Because it's like, the Blazers need to have a good start, or it feels like they need to have a good start, right?
yeah.
And if you drop that one, then you're 0-2 and you're looking at Lakers Clippers on the next 2. And this is before at least I understood that the Warriors are god awful. So it's like, man, you could be looking at a 1-5 here. So you're right. It didn't need to happen, but at the same time, just for the trajectory of the season, CJ coming through and kind of winning that game for the Blazers, and then Gary Trent kind of putting the team on his back in the next against the Lakers, that's pretty big deal for the way that this season starts to feel.
For sure. CJ shot to ice the game. I mean, nice. I don't know. That thing goes in 10 out of 100 times. Like that, it was tough. It was a tough and contested shot. It wasn't just a catch and shoot, but you're right. And the fact that we have different guys that can do it, CJ's already shown it. Gary's already shown it. Dame is going to have his moments. They're coming up. He played really, really well last night. It's still coming. And when you got 3 guys like that, it feels really good.
Just to your point that you were kind of making, I think it's important to realize and remember that these guys they're humans, and they are humans in 2020, 2021. Like, they are going through COVID related issues. They're putting their health at risk going out here and traveling around the country in the middle of this pandemic, and mental health is a big deal. And so for these guys to come out there and have these expectations of like, you got to do this or you got to do that, and you didn't have training camp, it's just like, sometimes I think it's important that us fans take a step back and realize we got to give these guys a little bit of grace sometimes.
I think that this is a good transition into if you're ready to start talking football too, because there's so much to be said about where you think a team should be and where they really think. But I feel like with NBA players more than anything, they know what's the power right here in their cell phones. And if you think that they're not on a trip, they'll go through the mentions. They'll go through them. Anyone who says they never open their DMs is a liar, because guess what? Chicks slide into the DMs. So there's for sure seeing that. And maybe they don't check their mentions. Let me just
interrupt you real quick and let you know that multiple Blazers players have checked our story on Instagram. So they're definitely checking those.
We know that, at least they see that. So, but to back to the point, they start hearing the chatter, and it starts being like, oh, well, why didn't you beat this team? These are professional athletes going against other people who take their job seriously and are professionals. So it's hard. It really is. It's hard to get up all the time. And I think that's kind of what it was, is the Blazers kind of felt a certain way. But it's the age-old, are we looking past a team? Are we moving on to a team? Are we not beating the right teams in the same way? And for now, I think it's just the Blazers just got to find their stride, keep building up, keep working on defense, keep doing the shot making, keep the ball movement going, and everything is going to start working out. And I really, really, really like the trajectory that this team is moving. I really do.
I do too. I got 3 quick things I want to tell you about Blazers. You could choose to talk about one of them or none of them or 3 of them if you want.
Okay, here we go.
So just real quick, the couple of things that are on my mind. One, I'm a little concerned about the mobility of our centers. If we're going to have Nurk and Cantor playing up and not dropping back anymore, I'm not sure that really plays to their strengths as kind of lumbering, slow-footed big man. Nurk will get better with conditioning, but it just worries me a little bit. I think that the potential emergence of Harry Giles is something to watch there. The second is that right now, Derrick Jones Jr. and Covington, if you're talking about we need those guys to step into a playoff series and make threes, it concerns me a little bit. I think
absolutely.
If I'm a fan of another team and I say, okay, so in order for the Blazers to beat us, they're going to need Robert Covington and Derrick Jones Jr. to hit open threes. That makes me feel like, I'm not so worried about that if I'm a fan of another team. So that's something to watch for. And then the third is we promised Carmelo Anthony that we would be the stewards of his legacy. And unfortunately, the elephant in the room is that we have this two-way monster off of the bench that needs those minutes. And right now, Terry Stotts, I don't know if you watch his interviews, but he's a little terse when people are asking him questions about the rotation with regard to Gary Trent Jr. And I'm a little frustrated personally watching those because it's like, dude, there is nobody on that bench that's even close to Gary Trent Jr. In fact, you can make the argument Gary's our fourth best player. Like,
flirting with third.
He needs those minutes. It shouldn't even be a question. He has earned those minutes. 6 minutes is unacceptable in my opinion. I love Terry Stotts. I think that Terry Stotts is a wonderful communicator. I think he's a great coach. But I still think I could have questions about some of the things he's doing, and that is the main one on my mind right now is that rotation. And I know that he's in a weird spot because we promised this Hall of Famer, blah, 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 blah. But those are the three things that I just had to get off my chest before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, the high pick and roll stuff is going to be tough, but as long as the rotations are there, we can make up for it. So not really that worried about that. I think that the approach in the playoffs of making Rocco or Derrick Jones Jr. beat you, I think that that's something we've seen. Teams insisted to try and get Chief and Mo to beat us. So I see it, and maybe there's a little bit different in stepping up to the timing. The rotation with Carmelo. I mean, when Gary's ready, Carmelo deserves 5 to 8 minutes. It's just that easy. I'm sorry, everyone else, and I don't know if I'm watching a different game or if it's just that after 15 years, because I've been a day oneer. I hate his game. It's terrible. It's not fun to watch. He's a ball-stopping black hole who does the same stupid shit all of the time. And it's not entertaining for me. I don't get it, Blazers Nation. Why do you continue to coddle this guy? And then the fact that during the broadcast, he's so infatuated with himself that he has to say, get this shit. And like, they have to like black it out. Like, we get it. How in love with yourself are you that you have to like do that kind of stuff? Like, I get it. Like, apparently there was a rebound where he passed someone last night. And so that was what Lamar was like. Oh, well, maybe he was going a little extra because it was a milestone moment. Did you see Dame doing anything different when he got his 15,000th point? No, because he wasn't counting it down in his head like Carmelo was. I don't see where he fits in. He deserves 5 to 8 minutes. If the Blazers are out there and they're not making shots, throw him in with the bench unit. That's fine. But I don't see it. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. But I don't like him. I don't like his game. I don't like him. I hated the narrative before the season. Oh, would he get number 7? Just for him to back. Never mind. I was just saying I would wear number 7. What a narcissistic dick, dude. I hate that guy. I'm sorry. Like, this is a guy who plays for my favorite team. And I just couldn't be. It's just like every time he's like, oh, 2 dribbles, turn around. I wonder what's going to happen. I'll tell you what's not going to happen. Him passing. That's what's not going to happen. And when it goes in, it still looks like shit. Ugh.
So he has made my body feel tangibly upset. But with that being the case, I feel like I have to go to bat for him now after that because you
can do it by yourself because I'm not doing it.
No, I know because I don't hate him like you do.
Loathe is probably
I
better.
like him. Like in his interviews, I think that he's a really nice guy. He's really good with the media. He's smiling all the time. He's happy. I feel like he has good perspective on life at this point. I feel like he just when we re-signed him, before we re-signed him, you and I on this pod, we said, I don't see a spot for him. And I think that we were one of the rare cases where we were just totally right. Like there's not really a spot for him, but we promised that we would steward his legacy. But last night against the Warriors, when he just is catching and shooting threes, he's not bad at that. He's a good 3-point shooter at this stage of his career. The issue with him is that he's gotten into this second unit, and in the preseason and in the first few games of the season, regular season, he came in off of that second unit and he just like, all right, time to cook. Get me this ball in the mid post and I'm going to jab step. Ball is stopping with me and I'm shooting an ugly ass 2. And I don't care if it goes in or not. I'm bringing it down the next time down and you're going to do the same thing. And everybody on that bench unit just respects him so much because of who he is that he kept doing it. Now, I said I'm going to defend him. Against the Warriors last night, he did look pretty good.
And a 20-point game.
The reason that he looked pretty good is, it was a 20-point game. The Warriors aren't very good, but he took the mid post slightly out of his diet. He shot more of those catch and shoot threes. And if he would just do that, then I can live with him. He just doesn't fit. The issue is he just doesn't fit because I think that we missed it a little bit. That second unit is just full of ISO scorers that can't defend very well. You got Kanter, Melo. Those two, I honestly think they should play 0 minutes together. You got Kanter and Melo who are just a part of a regular unit together right now. You got Rodney Hood coming off the Achilles, which hasn't looked like anything close to himself, and he's an ISO scorer. Although when he plays with people like Dame and CJ, he's a great spot up shooter too. I think he'll get there too, but it's just that second unit. There's a lot of talent on it, and it fits together so well when you take Melo out and you put Gary in. Then it's just like every combination feels right because Gary brings you defense and great shooting. But basically all I'm trying to say is I don't hate Melo. I think he's a good guy. I like his energy, and if he would just do more catch and shoot threes and way less mid post, I think he could have a role on this team. I don't think that he will, unfortunately, but that's the best I could do to defend him. Honestly, I don't want to defend him. He's made me so mad this year.
You're right. Like, I think that we have an idea of what we'd like to see out of him. And I think that mine is missing the flight to the LA.
Right. Player coach.
But he's not going anywhere. So we just have to accept it, but it's fine. Like, I don't hate this guy because hate is a very strong word, and I've saved those for very, very few people in this entire world. Right. I just don't like it. And it's just one of those things like when you wake up after too many Coors and you have acid reflux, when I see him doing that back down game and not passing to our young guys, that's when I'm like, ugh. Like, I don't care if you grew up liking this guy. You grew up liking a guy who's never won anything at any level except when he was 19. So take that for what it's worth. But
take it for what it's worth.
It's fine. Well,
I want to. I think Are we ready to switch into talk some NBA at large real quick?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I mean, to be honest, I don't have a lot for it. I think it's just there's such weird movement. But I mean, there are some teams where you're like, oh, that's interesting. But it's been
wonky. I mean, I feel like the Rodney Hood conversation topic is a nice transition because he's coming off an Achilles, and he'll get there. His shot looks fine, but he just doesn't. He's so timid. He's not the Rodney Hood that we grew to love on the court.
It's less than a calendar year off of Achilles, though. Like, I understand that part. Less than a full calendar year.
But KD, who has had longer than that, but he's coming off of that Achilles injury himself. That man.
He's had 18 months.
Is he 100%? I mean, Steve Nash, I recently heard Steve Nash say that he's 85% right now. But to me,
scary.
He looks 95% of what he was in Golden State. Or maybe if not 100, he looks
great. He looks great.
He's moving great. When he goes up for the dunks, he looks explosive. His game is not really built off of that anyway, because he's freaking 7 feet tall and shoots the lights out.
Yeah.
But KD, talk me out of it. I after this pod, I might just get on my phone and put my $75 free bet on KD for MVP, because even though I already have $20 of my own money on it, I just feel like who else could possibly win the MVP? Luka. I just don't think that Dallas is going to be there. And the LA guys are going to cancel themselves out. Is there anyone else that has a real chance to win the MVP?
Yeah, we talked about this when we saw the odds, because they started at 16-1.
Yeah, and I got 20.
They shrunk to 10.
Yeah,
and it's just like
10-1 still seems great.
It's still good numbers, because again, more than anything with the NBA, it's about like what is the storyline. And you're right, Luka, unless he just like all of a sudden drops 15 pounds and looks like he's conditioned and ready to go, I don't foresee him. And like you said, I don't know if Dallas is really in that top tier. Anthony Davis is an interesting story, because what will LeBron do as far as championing his MVP odds? Maybe. I don't think LeBron's necessarily in it. Giannis would have to be out of this stratosphere to win it for a third straight year, because it's just we are just, it's that same kind of story where it's like we're going to give it to a guy who's going to go into the playoffs and lose it again. I look around and I see it, and it's like, is the only other person who could get in his way his teammate Kyrie, who's really playing really well, which is also a little bit of a shock. But I think right now the safe money goes on KD to win the MVP. It's a bummer we got on this trend just a little bit too late. But yeah, I mean, I like it, and the Nets are fun to watch. And the Dinwiddie injury sucks, because he's a guy I liked. But it's weird, It's nice to see Steve on the sidelines. KD looks like KD. He really does, and I think he's still just like everybody else is kind of slowly working their way. KD was ready to start from the get-go, because he's had so much time off. So it's not shocking to me, but I think right now for MVP, he's that safe money, and the odds, the futures bets, at least in the application that we use, seem to go down about every day. So we'll see what they are next time, but I like it. I really do.
Yeah, he's at 10-1. I will say I got $20 on him at 16-1, so that feels pretty good.
Yeah. That's good.
That Nets team, to me, they're a real contender out east.
They're fun to watch too. They're fun to watch.
KD might end up being the best player in the East, and they got two guys off of that bench right now that would start on conservatively 50% of the league, probably more, in Karis LeVert and Jarrett Allen.
Yeah,
you got Karis LeVert coming in, leading your second unit. He is so overqualified to do that. That team is awesome on paper, and they, like you said, they're fun to watch. I'm hyped on the Nets. It's just exciting that the NBA has another like real contender to sort of watch develop this year that didn't really exist last year.
Yeah, and that's what we needed, because I kind of have that up and down conversation with myself about, am I upset about Golden State not being at full force this year? And going into the season, I was, but then watching them last night and being like, oh yeah, we're all those Warriors fans that used to fill Moda Center. That's kind of a fun narrative, but it is nice to see that there could be another real threat in the East. And it's been, I try, when it's on, when the Nets are on, I'm not going to not watch them. So they're fun to watch. And plus it's my guy, Steve, who I've admired for a while. Going back to LeVert, he is an incredible piece who can go out, because he's not a skilled shooter, but man, he can get to the bucket and get to his spot very, very easily. And he's one of those guys where you never know what they could do, and they might end up flipping and turning him into another nice piece as well. I think it's nice to keep an eye on the Nets. It's nice to keep an eye on our guy Daryl Morey and the Sixers too. Who knows? Maybe they just needed a little bit more structure, but they're playing really well as well. So I don't know. The East is, we do not spend a lot of time on the East and on this podcast, and so it's nice to kind of glance over on the other side and be like, there's some fun stuff going on.
Yeah, there is. As far as I don't know if you think about legacies and things like that as much as I do. Maybe you do, but before the season started, I was thinking about Steph Curry, who is, in my opinion, without argument, one of the best players of all time, and definitely one of the best players that I've seen play. unfortunately, like the Dame Curry comparisons are always a thing. I think that before the season started, I was saying this is going to be an important year for his legacy. And I think anytime, if he continues to look poorly, it's going to take a little bit of shine off of him, because it's going to be just very easy to make the argument of like, oh, yeah, yes, without a doubt, he's one of the best players of all time. But all the other guys that we're talking about, like top 10, top 20, top 30 players of all time, you put them on a cast that's, the Warriors supporting cast isn't absolutely god awful. There's NBA players on that team.
Yeah.
And if you can't make the playoffs with that and you're still in your prime, I'm not saying that it means he's a bum by any means. It just takes a little bit of shine off of him. It's like, okay, yeah, he definitely raises your ceiling tremendously. But can he carry a team? Again, I don't want this to turn into like a hot take machine. I just think that from a legacy's perspective, I think that matters. If Steph can't carry this team to at least an 8 seed, then that part of the argument comes up when you want to compare him to a Dame, or you want to compare him even to a Westbrook, when like those guys could absolutely put a team on their back and showed consistently and bring them to the playoffs.
So that was the guy I was going to bring up. Is we kind of said if Westbrook and Beal can't do it in the East, then it's damaging to their legacy. And that's the first thing I thought of when we're talking about Seth Curry's older brother, because he seems to be the better Curry right now. No, I mean, I was thinking it, but I know don't let those thoughts creep into your mind, because I think Steph is still one of those guys who is capable of proving you wrong. But I'm not going to say he hasn't been a huge beneficiary of Clay, number one. But Draymond is just, I don't know, man. Like, I've never been a big Draymond fan, but the past 2 years, it's just like, this guy just doesn't have it anymore. And Wiseman, that was weird where he went down last night, and you never know with the bigs. And Kelly Oubre, God, I was way wrong. I was like, oh, he's going to be a great piece for them. Kelly Oubre has looked like the worst player in basketball. So the idea has crept into my head, because I've always been the number one guy driving the Steph hater bandwagon. But yes, he's been the beneficiary of a lot of things. But they compare him to my favorite football team, and I think the same way about Pat. So I don't know. I mean,
sure,
legacy damaging, maybe just question mark.
Just a little tiny tarnish. I mean, because people, we're talking about greatest of all time. So again, he could totally make the playoffs still. I'm just saying it's something to watch for. I was looking at I don't want to give a full 15 minutes on the Warriors, but just real quick, I was looking at their contract situation last night after the game.
Really?
They're kind of screwed. I mean, Klay Thompson is arguably the worst contract in the league at this point. I mean, we'll see. But he's making upper 30s for the next 4 years. They're paying Draymond mid upper 20s for the next 2 or 3 years. Whoa. They got Steph making 45, 48, and Steph deserves that, and then they got that Wiggins contract making 30s for the next 3 years. Like, they are not in a good position. Although Wiseman looks nice. Wiseman looks like he is going to be a real piece.
I think that they went from like being super, super savvy at making the moves that they did last year into like, maybe they outthought themselves. But you're right. I mean,
right.
We're at that moment right now where it's like, I don't know. It sure seems like a very explicit passing of the guard, where it's just like, I don't know if Steph will start being like an afterthought, but I have not spent any time in the last year and a half worrying about the Golden State Warriors. And it fills me with a lot of joy, because I've had a lot of Warriors fans talking a lot of mess to me in the building that I call my home. And it's just weird, because as soon as we get back in that place, it's odd. I don't think I'll see any of them.
Right. And it does feel good. It does feel good to have that, even though whatever. I do think they're a dark horse to go get Harden, but we shouldn't get too deep into that. Just real quick before we move off of the NBA, I think it's worth noting that the Suns have looked real nice. The Nuggets got off to a horrible start. The Magic were the last unbeaten team. Markelle Fultz looks like an actual piece.
Wow, I know.
I don't know. There's nothing else really that pops off the top of my head. The Kings have looked like a serviceable NBA team.
Which is nice. Yeah, I mean, there's surprises, but again, if we, say we do this in 4 weeks, are we
They'll
still
be
talking? I think we're still talking about the Suns because I think they've got it and they've got real guys, and I really like their rotation. Actually, maybe I didn't give them enough credit going in, but
I didn't. I'll admit that right now.
yeah, and that's fine. But but like I said, from the jump, I think the Magic is not like a fluke thing. I think it's because they brought back a lot of their core. Man, it'd be really great if they had Jonathan Isaacs because I really like that kid. I've been on him since day one, but we'll see. I think the Nets are going to continue, and the Sixers are going to continue. As far as the rest on the East, who really knows? I don't know what to expect. I mean, Miami has looked meh, and the Bucks have looked great and also meh. So I don't know. We'll see.
The Bucks defense doesn't look good, which to me is just like,
which was their calling card, though.
Yeah, that doesn't say to me that the Bucks aren't good at defense. That's just another data point of like, oh yeah, this season you can't really make much out of the data at this point because the Bucks were the best defensive in the league last year. They added Drew Holiday, so they didn't get worse at defense. They just
for sure. Yeah.
Go ahead.
We're going to continue this focus. We're going to talk a little bit next week. There's still going to be questions, but if we talk in like 2 weeks, I think there's going to be a lot more answers than there are questions. And right now there's just a lot of questions out there because of this kind of wonky start, and that's fine.
Totally. I want to switch on over here to the NFL real quick. And okay. I just want to point out that there's a narrative developing that your Kansas City Chiefs are not looking like their tip-top selves. I'm wondering if you want to have a little moment to clap back at that, or what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, say what you want about my beloved Kansas City Chiefs. Anyone. Their worst is still better than a lot of these teams who are going to make the playoffs best.
For sure.
And there's a problem when you start complaining about how many points you're beating a team by.
Right.
Since December of 2019 to today, +1 game. No one else can say that. No one else can say that. Should they have been beating teams by more? Sure. Should they be less cute? Probably. They're not interested. Tomorrow, they're probably going to get beat up by a Chargers team because they're playing nobody. Because guess what? Travis Kelce already broke a record. Tyreek could break a record, but they're not going to throw him. Pat's not worried. You see the play calling, and they're just telling you, we're just messing with you. And I'm not worried about a 20-day layoff for Pat Mahomes. I'm not worried about anything because when it comes down to it, Andy Reid is going to put the right game plan together. Are the Chiefs beatable? Yes, they really are. And obviously the team that everybody wants to anoint, a team that the Chiefs manhandled and just punched them in the face, the Buffalo Bills. That's fine. But I'd like to take you back to that Week 6 matchup. The Chiefs did something against Buffalo that they haven't done all season. And they just said, you know what? We're going to run it right at them. And do you think that was just a fluke? Do you think they were just like, oh, the weather's bad, let's just run the football? No, that's Andy telling you, I'm smarter than everybody over there. And they want us to throw the football. So we're just going to run it right at them. It's fine. I don't care how everybody feels about it. One of the people I admire the most thinks that they're the third best team in the league. And if you think that Kansas City is anything but the class of the NFL, you're wrong. They have the best high-end talent. They have arguably the best quarterback. Rodgers is putting together a great season, and that's fine too. But I'm not worried at all. At what point does it take for Vegas to be like, you know what? We should probably put the Chiefs as a non-favorite when they're down 17? Because it's not 14, because we've seen it. It's not 10. It could be you're down 7 with 2.5 minutes left. Oh, no, you're still a -150 favorite. Because they understand, just like I do, their ceiling is way above everyone else. And that's fine. Will they end up running in and maybe getting a little too cute? That's what I'm scared of. But I'm not afraid of a letdown. I'm worried about a team who just comes in and says, you know what? We'll trade blow for blow. And I really think there's only 2 teams who could do it. It's the Ravens and the Bills. And we know what to say about the Ravens. We've said it before. Everyone wants to talk about Lamar's record, but they just forget those 3 times that the Chiefs have trashed them.
Yeah.
The Bills are fine, because they have.
The Bills are nice. You got to give them some props.
I've watched a lot of Buffalo Bills football. And I understand why they're the team that people are the most are like, oh, well, these guys get upset. I think the Titans have just as much of a chance of beating the Chiefs as say the Bills, just because they have Mr. Business decision. So there's a lot of parts that go into it, and I'm going to be really focused tomorrow to see how everything is going to lay out. But, give me a team that you think can go toe-to-toe with them scoring. And everyone wants to talk about the defense, how it's the worst red zone defense in the league. Guess what? Doesn't matter. In the 6 weeks in a row where it's been time to seal the game, this is what's the best about Kansas City, and that no one else will tell you. 3 times it's been the offense that's sealed the game. 3 times it's been the defense that sealed the game. They're doing it in the way, it doesn't matter which way. They're just getting it done. And I think that's something that a lot of people are forgetting about.
Yeah, I appreciate that take. I think that it's spot on. The Chiefs, they kind of remind me, like watching the Chiefs the last couple of weeks, it reminds me of when I would play my little brother in basketball growing up. Shout out Dylan McGee. And it's just like, you know what? I'm going to win this game. So in order to make it fun, I'm going to like spot you a little lead. I'm going to kind of let you have a few layups.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe I could try to see if I could come back from 7-2. And it just kind of seems like that's what the Chiefs are doing. They're just like a little bit like, we're so much better than you guys that we're gonna toy with you a little bit. That play call that they did where they direct snapped it to a halfback, and then he pitched it or handed it off to Mahomes, and then he pitched it and Mahomes went out. That route was insane. It wasn't successful, but it was so cool to watch. So creative.
And that's where they are. They brought that little where they do the little pirouette in the same formation. They did it against the 49ers in the Super Bowl in 4th and goal, but they ran something completely different. So it's they're not saving all of this stuff. Like everything goes into the mental bank, and you look at Andy's menu of plays, and all he's doing is just making little mental notes. There's a lot of different things that they can do. And granted, I think that's one thing that a lot of people are like, well, they're not scoring enough and they're not putting enough touchdowns on the board in the red zone. But I think there's a lot of times where they're just like, let's just give this a little bit of a wrinkle. Let's just give this. Let's give that. That was a great play by Keanu Neal. He's a safety on the Falcons. He read it all the way and had, my Big B was like, why didn't you just throw it to this guy who's open? I was like, that's a one play, or that's a one-man route. He's not thinking about a guy crossing. He's not thinking about someone D-Rob or Tyreek crossing the middle of the field. The idea is to throw it to Patrick in that situation. And for Pat, I think the big thing that went unsaid is, man, he made a hell of a play keeping it from being intercepted. But I think that they have the most plays in that 4th and short and that 4th and goal situation. I think, it's a lot of 2-point conversion plays where it's like, if they need it, they've got something that they can throw at you that you haven't seen on tape. And this week off or 2 weeks for them is going to be a lot of scouting of themselves, but a lot of scouting of how they beat teams like Cleveland, Indianapolis, Buffalo, Baltimore. So,
yeah. So, I mean, for me, looking at the NFL, in the AFC, the Chiefs are obviously the clear favorite. They're just so damn good, and Mahomes is so damn good. And so is Andy Reid. It's hard to not trust them. The Bills, like we said, the Bills are scary. The Bills are nice.
Yeah.
They got that offensive firepower. They're solid defensively.
Yep.
The NFC, it's hard to talk yourself into any of these teams. Drew Brees is 78 years old and playing with 12 broken ribs. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers just lost their left tackle for the rest of the postseason. The Seahawks, well, they can't they can't get both offense and defense firing at the same time, it seems.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know who to pick. I almost want to talk myself into the Seahawks just because what's not working right now is Russ, and I tend to trust
and
Russ.
He'll fix it. Yeah.
But like, I wanted to think the Packers, but they lost their left tackle. That's a big deal. I don't know. Like, what are you thinking? Like, if you were going to bet on one of the teams right now, the Packers are 5-1, the Hawks are 10-1.
Yeah.
I think the Saints are 8-1 or something.
So I think going back to when we did this before the season, I think I said Chiefs over the Ravens and then the Saints over the Seahawks in the NFC. And I could see something like that, but I think that Green Bay has kind of done a little bit. They've kind of changed my mind on who they were. And granted, it was a little bit different of a circumstance, being that was a snowstorm, which I thought would really work into the favor of the Titans, because I think that the Packers are still a little bit of a finesse football team that is capable of taking one in the mouth if a team wants to just run straight ahead. Who else is going to do that to them if it's not the Titans? So I don't see a lot of teams in the NFC that can really do that. And if they win tomorrow, they're staying at home. And do you really think that Drew Brees, who's lost 2 years in a row in his dome, is going to go outside and beat them? I really don't, even though I think that they clearly have the best talent. Seattle's the enigma. They really are. They're one of those teams where week to week, I just don't really know what you're going to get. And Russ has been really letting me down from like my investment standpoint. Like I've invested a lot of like energy into Russ, and it's because I like him so much. I feel like he's so endearing. Like I like who he is, but he's looked a little different. I don't know if there's a safe bet. David Bakhtiari went down in practice, which sucks, but he was the number 1 rated left tackle in the league. Didn't change the line though, so you got to really think about it. Like if he's that impactful, the line moves a little bit. I mean, they're going to miss him. They'll miss. I think that it might be a little bit of a story because they happen to be playing Chicago, who's going to be desperate, and they still have one of the best pass rushers in the league. So that might stand out a little bit, where teams are like, look, they're going to miss David Bakhtiari. But the way that Aaron's playing right now, I just am like, I mean, that's the team where it's like, if I had to put the hierarchy of teams I don't want the Chiefs to have to face, Green Bay's at the top of that list because they can match them blow for blow. And then it goes, then probably Buffalo. So, but I don't know if there's safe money out there. I really don't. Like there really isn't. And that's why there is such a gap of these in the odds.
Yeah, and the Chiefs odds are not, you're only getting 2-1 odds.
2-1.
Now. That's not very good. I mean, they got to go through a tough slate on the AFC, and then they got to win the Super Bowl. So
3 games away.
That bye.
3 games away. But I know you're right, and it's just one of those years where it's going to be really exciting. Tomorrow is going to be fun. It's going to be really, really fun to watch some of these teams in the desperation, because there might be an 11-5 football team on the AFC that misses the playoffs, which is insane because they added a playoff spot. The fact that there's going to be
a 10-win team that misses.
Yeah, no matter what, there's going to be a 10-win team there.
Yeah.
And granted, 10-win teams have missed before. The Patriots, when they lost Brady, won 10 games and they missed the playoffs. But the fact that an 11-win team could, because if they all win, still someone gets left out. The Colts still end up getting left out, even if they win 11 games, that's crazy. But it's going to be madness tomorrow. I think we're going to know a little bit more going into the wild card round, what to expect out of certain teams. But this is really, really exciting to me. And I know we are a basketball focused podcast, but there's a lot of fun activity and chances and little meetups that could happen in the NFL. And I'm glued to it, man. And like I said, this money in my account has been burning a hole in my pocket. So really excited to get to next week so I can actually put some real money on some of these football games.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. It's been so much fun just talking through text with you about what we're going to do with these free bets. We've ranged everywhere from putting the money on Igor Karaslenko in the Russian ping pong tournament.
Kavaslenko.
Sorry. Yeah, it's hard for me to pronounce, but Brian and I have definitely been known to throw some action on Russian ping pong.
Don't call for help, anyone. We're fine.
Yeah, we're fine. It's only like $5. But anyways, I just need to know where to put this money because it's so exciting. And again, I'm not going to throw these big bets on week 17 because I think it's going to be all over the place.
Oh yeah.
But once we get into that wild card, like you said to start it, if y'all got some good lines out there, throw them our way because we're hunting.
Right now, I'm leaning. Almost did it last night in a little bit of a weird fit where I had a couple too many Coors Lights. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put that 75 on the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm still not quite there, but I might be because the odds aren't going to get any worse between now and 2 weeks from now. So we'll see. But I'm excited. I'm really it's exciting to see what happens in basketball. I was really hoping for your guys, the Sacramento Kings, your B squad, put a little love on them financially today, but it was close, but it's a double digit now. But it's exciting. It's fun to have things that you're interested in, not only financially, but to watch the sports, and that's what we're about. That really is what we do is talk a little bit of sport.
That's right, and teach.
Yeah. No. Well, we got to start doing that again. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's coming back. That's coming back. I'm looking forward to seeing my kiddos.
Yeah, same. Well, let's get in the lab, next week. I mean, Saturdays work good because, I don't really have anything going on Saturdays.
I love Saturdays.
All right, cool. Well, look for us, friends. Look for us on Saturdays. Maybe that's going to be the new thing. But, I think here in a week, we'll have a lot more to talk about. The NBA will still be a little cloudy, but we're going to start getting there, and we'll start fighting through the clouds together.
Absolutely. And there's a game every other day for each team. So there's going to be a lot to discuss by then.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Once we get to that 15 to 20 range, we'll know for the most part, excluding injuries, what we can start to get out of teams, I think. And it'll be fun to continue to keep watching. We'll just continue to watch other teams. We'll continue to break down some of your squads, folks. But, stay tuned. Stay tuned. We're going to keep putting it out. You guys just got to keep listening.
Absolutely. That's all you got to do. And sometimes, remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Let your friends know if you got some good sports friends out there that need some pod listening. Yeah. It really helps a lot if you could share this out with them.
Spread the word. We're doing this just because we want to see how many views and listens we get. Turns out we're not getting paid for it.
Not yet.
Not yet. But, we'll just start changing our mindset and we'll get there.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Well, great job. I mean, it's an exciting day tomorrow, so I'm sure this little bad boy is going to be lit up the entire time because there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about.
Oh, I'll be hitting you up all day long.
All right, good job. I mean, this was a lot of fun. It did take a little too long to get in between, but obviously traveling kind of got in the way. But I look forward to doing this every week again.
Right back at you. Happy New Year to you, and Happy New Year to all you listeners out there.
All right, Happy New Year, brother. I look forward to talking to you soon.
Yes, sir.
All right, later.